Welcome to Get Serious, where at Serious Land Capital, we have funded over $6 million worth of vacant land deals with industry-leading 41% operating margins. So today I wanted to carry over the discussion from last week where I went over the ability to really think critically about deal structures and the requirements to overcome your own inertia and get past your own ego and so forth when new data or expertise that is beyond your own comes to light. So, this discussion really centered around our pursuit of entitlement related deals, specifically in regard to funding soft costs, and how this particular deal or a couple deals that we're looking at, it got complicated because our typical debt operating loan structure backed by a limited recourse personal guarantee would not be effective if the operator who brought us this deal was using a self-directed IRA, because you have certain prohibitions against cross-collateralization of assets or personal guarantees. So it created a whole mess. And so, the summary of that video is that we decided to utilize our existing special purpose vehicle equity structure that we've utilized in the past for one-off deals where we've brought in other investors. But this time we would join an existing LLC as an investor in order to have more inherent protections in the case that the operator was using a self-directed IRA. So, probably a number of you, including myself, even as I talk through this, it just gets wildly complicated really quickly. But the takeaway is, some of these situations require really diving deep and figuring out, hey, is there a potential for us to strike a deal here? We have a solid operator, we have a solid deal. What are the requirements for getting this deal over the finish line? What does the structure have to look like? What can we be comfortable with from a risk alignment and potential return profile perspective? So I talked about this as well too within this week's Serious News, the newsletter. Free, you can check it out on our website if you want to sign up if you haven't already. But to update this, when we actually got into the weeds of adopting the legal drafts for transferring these membership interests and amending existing operating agreement and so forth, it's a lot more complex in practice. And I think most entrepreneurs or small businesses at this point have at least explored utilizing one of the AI LLM models for legal assistance, whether it is help with contract prep or at least reviewing contracts that are sent over to them. That's become much more of a standard practice, and we're certainly not new to that as well too. That's probably one of the biggest use cases we've utilized AI for at this point. But like I called out within the newsletter, is that if you don't understand the core questions you're trying to ask and what type of structure you're trying to arrange a certain agreement around, the chances that AI is going to lead you astray or leave you hanging on really critical language that could come back to bite you later on is absolutely critical note that a lot of people bypass. And so even though it's extremely impressive how much AI can put together and the context it can keep in mind now, like there's just less hallucinations and so forth. The chance that you're going to get a really robust document without significant back and forth and an understanding of what's actually required for underlying dispute resolutions, that's not going to put existing lawyers out of business anytime soon, because you're going to get so many of these bare bones, looser, ChatGPT created legal agreements that inevitably are going to have to be tested by the legal system and will prove that they're not quite up to snuff here. That being said, when you do understand how to work with AI as a partner and have the proper context and know how to go back and forth with it, I mean, the outputs are just astonishing. So, I mean, I spent admittedly much of the last 2 days working on these drafts. Again, it was more complex than I imagined to have to go through this, but all this is worthwhile because it cleans up a lot of work that we would have to do in the future anyway. These are all going to be reusable. So oftentimes the first lift is going to be the heaviest, but I kind of woke up earlier the night after I had prepped these docs and realized, hey, some of this still seems thin. Like I need to go back to this and just like double check to make sure that our language isn't too loose. And ultimately it was. So, to kind of run through the process here in a little bit more detail, we had an existing uh, equity special purpose vehicle LLC agreement, otherwise known as an operating agreement, that we've utilized that was attorney prepared in the past. And our goal was to prepare a mirror version of that to amend the existing LLC that's managing this particular entitlement deal. So that was the biggest lift. It's like, okay, can we transfer all of these various protections and different, member strategies and so forth over to this other document? So that was the heaviest lift here, but rightfully so. When I was utilizing a specific legal brain that we've built within ChatGPT, it was suggesting other documents to be supplementary to that, or okay, the original manager of the LLC has to waive their or effectively assign new membership interests and so forth. So you had a whole bunch of accessory docs that needed to be added in, and the AI was able to prep all of this, prep 7 or 8 different documents all at once and in downloadable format. And astonishingly, compared to 6 to 12 months ago, so often when I would have much longer dialogues within one particular chat thread with one of the AI models, like it would get lost. It wouldn't be able to remember the context from earlier in the conversation, or just the responses would start to devolve and it could just get worse, and so you'd have to restart different chat threads. I'm sure anybody who's used AI like that can relate. But now just the amount of context these cutting edge models can kind of retain within their memory, and not lose focus. Even when you're saying, hey, double check, and you're expecting things to happen, it is able to retain that context. Like, I mean, I must have thousands and thousands of words within this one specific legal draft that we were doing, and the AI was just, ChatGPT just never lost focus, which is just so helpful without having to like readjust all your context windows and so forth and new chat threads to update on the context. Like, it's just ridiculously impressive for the amount of firepower you can get, and just more of the trust you can place that, hey, the AI is not losing its place in the line of thinking you're trying to progress on. That being said, the outputs, if you're still trying to get, these full legal agreement, outputs, especially if it's trying to do 7 or 8 docs at once, like it just doesn't have the capacity to artfully do that in a detailed enough manner. Like, it can get you the core sections down and broadly cover the protections you need, especially the ones really focused on adjusting throughout the various threads, or the existing chat thread. And so, like, ultimately the legal provisions and the implications that you're trying to arrive at remain the same compared to if you just had a much more robust agreement prepared on your behalf. But the language is just not tight enough. At least that's been my experience, and I think most people's experience probably. And so the key fix to have to address this at the moment, which is still fine, it just takes a little bit longer. And this is something I learned from Callan probably around a year ago, and still applies today, is that when you're trying to do these longer drafts, is that you should go section by section that you're trying to address, because the AI can then just really focus in, and instead of trying to prep a 20-page document all at once, it can focus on a few paragraphs, really nail those, then you move on to the next one. And so fortunately, because we had an existing LC agreement that was fully attorney prepared, I could go section by section and just say, okay, here's the copy that we're very confident in. Here's what your output was for the AI prepared sections. What do we need to change and adapt here? And then, I was able to go back and forth. And that was much more effective. So like, the original document might have been, I don't know, around 10 pages or so, this new operating agreement. After going through all this, spending several hours on it, a lot of back and forth, it got up to like 26 pages, like a really meaty legal agreement that, anybody who's ever been in a legal dispute, like, it helps both parties because the more you can reduce gray area for any potential dispute, like that's just going to lower costs for everybody. If you are encountering certain scenarios and you're already addressing them within the writing that both parties signed, like it just makes things a lot simpler, a lot more cost effective, because everybody agreed to how certain situations, no matter how like black swan type that they might be, like you've already signed in writing for them. So even though like the broad implications, again, provisions that we're trying to achieve within the agreement like remain largely the same, it's just the language is now a lot tighter and a lot stricter. So there's just far less wiggle room to work within, and that's always going to be your friend when you're considering legal agreements. And so then I went back to the other smaller documents that were basically ancillary to the main operating agreement, had those updated as well. So understanding this process, like it's only going to help going forward here. And I was just like glued to trying to figure this out. Frankly, just really, again, impressive and exciting to work on this, because, setting up agreements like this, I mean, if you went to an attorney and just try to do this from scratch, I mean, this is at least 5 to 10 grand minimum to get this done. But again, like contextually, what's super important here is that we already had an attorney prepped document. Like if I didn't have that, if I didn't have a guideline on how we should be modeling our new amended operating agreement, like this would have been way harder to do. It's not impossible, but it gave us a lot more confidence that our output is going to be legally viable given a tested document that we already have in the wild here. And the AI was just like even pointing out some issues with the attorney document, and how we can shift it to be more protective for us and our counterparty and so forth in this newer document, and adjusting it to the relevant state law and all that. Like that's just really, really critical information. Like it's again amazing that just has all of this. It's the entire internet that it has at its disposal to be able to check in on, and can do it all so quickly. That was key from our perspective. And then additionally beyond that, is kind of carefully looking over and making sure all the changes that the AI is suggesting is consistent. And luckily it was able to do that. Like it was maintaining, okay, this is the correct section that it's referencing, like 20 plus different sections, and not making any mistakes there. And then, my core business partner, who's, effectively a lawyer outside of holding the degree, and like he's reviewing that as well and checking, okay, is there any other provisions that we need to include? And so far it's looking very good. But like internally, we have a lot of double checks in process that help us get this right. And even so, my partner is like pointing out, yeah, we probably need this other document, and signed initially first, like this power of attorney document, because in case there is any default, if we need to work with third parties, like no one's going to work with us unless we have this letter. Certain things that can be improved upon. Overall, very sophisticated in terms of getting the correct output. And initially these deals that we're going into, they're like a little bit smaller check sizes, sub 200K, even sub 100K initially here. But if we were going to do a $500,000, $1 million deal, or so forth, like we would certainly double check then with another attorney to like make sure our docs are super solid. But again, it saves us so much groundwork because we already have tested attorney docs that we built, AI docs, AI generated docs from, model them off of, and then we can go back and like confirm, okay, we're all squared away here. And that just, makes the attorney's job a lot easier as well too, and costs us a lot less. So hopefully this gives you an idea on how, to work with AI just in general. Again, context and back and forth matter. And if you don't understand what you're trying to achieve, like you're going to be led astray so quickly, especially if it's in an area that you don't quite understand, which, a lot of folks don't understand, like detailed case law and legal provisions outside of lawyers. So I would count myself that as well here. So it's easy to just like for your eyes to just cloud over and just believe whatever the AI is putting in front of you. And I see this all the time. You can start to see like ChatGPT's output, what their legal docs look like. And, I'd just say like most entrepreneurs seem to be defaulting to that at the moment. So, just a word to the wise on how you should really adjust your process so that it won't come back to bite you later on. This goes for just using AI in general. So really, really cool features. One of the biggest lifts, biggest ROI pieces possible for anybody, personal or business owner, to like work with AI from a legal perspective. But use these same principles for really anything that you're trying to do with AI. Do the deeper work, use it as a deeper thought partner, but just understand the question that you're actually trying to answer. And do the hard work to actually understand what the output is and what the implications are. Hopefully this is helpful here. I'm very excited by the continued potential. Again, these LLM models are just remarkably better than even several months ago. I'm just very excited to continue to dive in and keep growing accordingly. This just feels almost like a superpower. It's just ridiculous, the potential that we have at our fingertips as small business owners, and how much we can just get done. So I will talk with you all next week here. Subscribe and share. Remember seriousland.capital if you want to submit any land deals, $50K minimum purchase price. Looking forward to next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.